If your homeschool feels chaotic, heavy, or like you're constantly falling short, then this video is really going to hit home. Because I'm not sharing trends or theories today. I'm sharing the 9 things that I had to quit doing before our homeschool finally turned around. Some of these are really popular, and some of these are hard for me to admit. But every single one of these 9 things were holding our homeschool back. They were keeping me stuck and exhausted. Now, before we dive in, let me just say this. If you've never seen one of my videos before, I'm Ashley, mother of 11 and founder of Vocational Homeschooling. This is where we treat homeschooling as a calling, not as a side hustle. We believe that homeschooling is a strategic, generational responsibility. This is not about having a Pinterest hobby. This is not about one curriculum haul after the other. This is a high calling to lead your children with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And if you are in a season right now where it just feels like everything is slipping through your fingers, I want you to watch my free masterclass when this video is over. It's called The Framework I Wish I Had 18 years ago. And in it, I show you exactly how I rebuilt my own homeschool from the ground up. The link is below in the description box. But for now, let's dive into the 9 things that I had to quit. Starting with the lie that nearly every overwhelmed homeschool mom believes. Number 1, I quit hiding behind independent learning when I was just avoiding leadership. Let's just go ahead and kick this off right now with the sacred cow of independent learning. I bought into the idea that if I could just teach my child how to learn, everything else would fall into place. But here's the truth. Belief in the idea that learning how to learn is the most important thing actually led to abdication on my part. And my kids felt it. I want to tell you about the time, it was probably about a 2 or 3 year period, probably 2 years, where I fell down the rabbit hole of the Robinson curriculum. Now, I know that the Robinson curriculum has a lot of avid followers, and I appreciate that. However, I think you have to be a certain type of parent to where you can do the Robinson curriculum really well. And I wasn't that type of parent at the time. Maybe I could today, but I found something much better, so I'm not even going to explore that. But the Robinson curriculum is all about teaching your child how to learn for themselves. And that sounds like a great idea. The problem is you don't teach the child how to learn by themselves. There is actually no teaching going on whatsoever. It is reading for, I think, 2 hours a day, which is great. This is great. You're reading from a select book list of classic books. You're reading from the Bible. You're reading from older encyclopedias. You know, sounds great. On the surface, this is good stuff. You are writing every day, so like a page of writing every day, and you are doing math every day. Now, all of these things in and of themselves are very good. What happens though is that when your child needs some actual teaching instruction, you don't give it to them. They have to figure it out on their own. Now, some children are uniquely predisposed to be able to do this very well, but I would say the vast majority of us need a teacher. I'm not sure why I did not catch on to this sooner, because I have my own experience with independent learning. I went to public school, and when we lived in Pennsylvania, I had the most incredible math teacher for both pre-algebra and for algebra. It's not like he was fascinating, but he had a process to teach every single class. You knew what was expected. He went through the same method to teach every single lesson. The homework was like, everything was very laid out. Everything was very methodical. He had time for questions. He kept grades posted. It was fantastic, and it worked really well with my brain. I don't have a natural talent for math, but because he made it so easy to just follow the next step, I did really well in math for the first time in my life. That was for pre-algebra and for algebra. But then we moved to Virginia. And let's just say the quality of public schools in Virginia, in my experience, is so far inferior to the quality of the public schools up in Pennsylvania. I obviously don't know if this is still the case, but at that time it was. In the 90s, it most certainly was. I ended up with an awful geometry teacher who it seemed like was actually mentally ill and would have breakdowns in the middle of the class. And then the next year in Algebra 2, my teacher was quite elderly. He had a heart attack mid-year. He barely taught when he was there, but then he had a heart attack and was gone for 6 to 8 weeks. And instead of getting a math teacher in there, they just had substitute teachers who had no idea what they were doing. It was a total nightmare. So I went from being a good student in math because I had an excellent teacher to just, I wasn't failing because I did what I had to do, but I have no recollection of anything that I learned in geometry or in Algebra 2. It was a total disaster. So I knew firsthand the power of a good teacher. And for some reason, I fell for this idea that your child does not need to have an outside teacher, that in fact, having an outside teacher could be harmful to them because then they never learn how to learn themselves. I bought it hook, line, and sinker, and we wasted about 2 years in our homeschool. All of this felt very good at the time. I was, active in the Robinson Curriculum Facebook group, and, it's basically an echo chamber. Everybody's very rah-rah about it. But I regret that. It was time that we lost that we could have been applying in a much more efficient manner. Number 2, I quit measuring our success by how happy my children were. I thought the goal was peace. No tears or arguments equals a great day. But that idea had me avoiding pushback instead of actually leading my children towards learning. My children were not thriving, they were just coasting. So I don't want anyone to think that I have 11 children who are perfect angel learners and we never have any problems whatsoever. I have had a few students over the years who it was their chief end was to push back. And it made it very, very hard. Some days I just decided to take the easy way out and not require those certain children to do what needed to be done. And again, this was abdication on my part. That's not the way to win any battle. It is certainly not the way to teach a child that they need to learn to do their work. And so I know that it is really, really hard. I've been in those battle trenches. It is the most difficult thing you will probably ever do. But at the end of the day, that child has to learn that he or she must do their work, they must pay attention, they must finish the job. It's just that simple. And some days my other children that were following directions did not get the time that I wish that they had gotten. Fortunately, today, I know plenty of strategies on how to deal with these children and how to get through the day and how to do what needs to be done. But just giving in to that one child or those 2 children who just do not seem to be able to get their act together is never the answer. Number 3, I quit assigning work that I didn't plan to follow up on. Okay, this one in particular stings a lot. No one wants to admit that they do this, but it's time that we take ownership of what we have been doing wrong. I had beautiful charts. I had the best of intentions assigning all of this work. And in the beginning, my children would do the work because they thought that I was going to be checking it. Listen, it does not take long for our children to catch on that we are not paying attention, that we're not checking the work. And the moment they catch on to that, their work quality starts to slide. Or even worse, they stop doing it because they know that you're not really checking to even see if they're doing it in the first place, so they don't even go through the motions. This is the worst thing that you can do in your homeschool. Well, maybe it's not the worst thing, but you understand what I'm saying? If you are going to assign something to your children, you must follow through and check the work and give them a grade and make them correct what they got wrong. Otherwise, it is an exercise in futility. This is a lot like the Bible verse that tells us not to exasperate our child, but it's kind of like reverse exasperation, because our children will realize that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and so they can get out of doing something. Listen, they're going to do that. Number 4, I quit thinking I could teach well without learning how to teach. Okay, ladies, so this is probably obvious to a lot of you, but deciding to homeschool does not automatically make us good teachers. We have to learn to be good teachers, and I am not sure why, but for at least my first decade of homeschooling, I was completely clueless to this fact. I thought because I wasn't a good teacher, I could never be a good teacher. I'm not sure why I didn't put the puzzle pieces together that teaching is a skill that anyone can learn. Now, of course, there are some truly gifted teachers, and that's what they were born to do, and they're so good at it. They're the ones winning the awards. I don't aspire to that. Like, maybe if I spent, hours and hours and hours every single day trying, maybe I could win an award. I don't know. But what I'm saying is we can all become better teachers, but we do have to study, and we have to practice, and we have to apply ourselves towards that. We don't just have to accept that we're bad teachers and our poor children got the short end of the stick. So what finally helped me to understand this was I came out with a chore course back in 2019, and it taught moms how to get their children doing chores and how to stay on top of their housework and everything. And I got so much positive feedback on this course. They were short lessons, they were digestible. The moms that did it got fantastic results. So I got, tons of people telling me, you're such a good teacher, you're such a good teacher. And I was like, no, I'm not a good teacher. I've been telling myself for the past 10 years that I'm not a good teacher. Well, turns out I wanted to learn how to teach so that I could make this course. And so I did it, but I still had probably a year or two where I didn't connect the dots that because I was a good teacher to other women, I could also be a good teacher to my children. Some of us are slower than others. Some of us, it takes a little bit more time to put 2 and 2 together, but I finally got to the point where I realized, yes, homeschool teaching is a skill, and yes, I can most certainly get better at it. So you ladies are a lot smarter than that. You can put that together a lot faster after just hearing me say that, I know. And you can become fantastic teachers as well. And really quick, if you are nodding along to everything that I'm saying and you're feeling really convicted, that's a good thing, because it means you are ready to lead at a higher level. And that's exactly what I cover in the free masterclass that I mentioned earlier. It's called The Homeschool Framework I Wish I Had 18 years ago. And it's packed with lots of different tips for how I went from survival mode to strategic leadership. If you're ready to stop floundering and actually build something sustainable, go ahead and watch it. The link is in the description. Number 5, I quit trying to wing it every Monday morning. I used to tell myself, we're just going to ease back into it on Monday. But the truth is, no anchor equals chaos. I needed rhythm and I needed a routine. So Mondays used to be the bane of my existence. I would look forward every week to Friday when we could close the books and I could pretend that I was a mom who had everything all together. But come Monday, I had to face the reality that I had no plan and that I was flying by the seat of my pants. Once this stopped and I decided to start taking dominion over my entire week, starting with Monday morning, my confidence grew and I started to feel more in control of what I could accomplish every single week. Having a repeatable plan that you can use week by week is absolutely essential to success. Number 6, I quit letting every hard season become a homeschool crisis. Sick kids, pregnancy, postpartum, a move. I would throw up my hands every single time and say, well, we will try again next month. Do you know how much time we wasted trying again next month? What I really needed were systems that could bend without breaking when all of these things came up, because they were going to come up and they were going to keep coming up. And there was no use pretending like there was any way around that. With 11 children, let me tell you, almost my whole entire adult life could could possibly be labeled as a hard season between the pregnancies and the postpartum and all of the illnesses in between. I had to learn how to work within my constraints. I had to learn how to keep things moving when it was important to actually pause, and how to catch up when we got behind. Number 7, I quit waiting until summer to reset everything. So here's the thing. Summer is not long enough to fix an entire year's worth of getting behind in homeschool. Of course, you can make great strides and you can reorganize things, but you can't condense 9 months of learning into 2.5 months. What I ended up having to do was build mid-year or even quarterly reset tools so that I could reset whenever I felt myself slipping, which when you're building a new habit, you have to build this in. You have to realize that you can't just decide you're going to completely overhaul the way that you're doing your entire life and expect no slips. This whole attitude was actually very similar to my Monday attitude as well. I had to stop looking forward to those breaks with everything that was in me and start learning to appreciate the day that I was in and use it up. Use it from sun up to sundown. That doesn't mean I was homeschooling from sun up to sundown, just making sure that I'm using the day that God gave me in the best way possible. Number 8, I quit resenting my role as a teacher. So I didn't even realize that I was bitter about this and that I was acting like an exhausted martyr. And just as an aside, ladies, no one wants to be around someone who is acting like a martyr. I'm sure you can all think of someone in your life who does this, and it's uncomfortable. So let's not expose our children to this 24/7, okay? I wasn't leading, I was dragging, and that mindset had to go. So I don't know about you, but for me, growing up, being a teacher was never on my short list. I really wanted to be a nurse, and there were some other things that I flirted with, but being a teacher was never one of those things. And so for a long time, probably the first decade of my homeschooling, I had this idea that homeschooling was just something that I had to endure. How awful was it for my children to have a teacher that felt like she was being tortured just by having to teach them? I chose this life. Okay, I have a few things to add to the statements that I made. I just wanted to make a quick clarification. So in my last point, I talked about me having chosen this life. Okay, I chose to homeschool. I chose to have 11 children. I chose to live out in the country with chickens and a pig. I chose all of these things. Now, these choices don't make my life easier. They definitely make things a little bit harder, right? However, I want to talk really quickly about what if you didn't choose your circumstances. So some people are homeschooling because they have to. They want their children to have a Christian education. They would prefer to have their children in a private Christian school, but they can't afford that. Or let's say that you have some children who have really hard learning disabilities or who suffer tremendously with ADHD or any other, maybe they're on the spectrum or whatever. Those are things that are outside of your choosing. Or, what if you, mom, are you have an autoimmune disease or you're battling cancer or, something that is, certainly not your choosing. What about you? So we have to look to the Bible here. The Bible tells us to do everything heartily as unto the Lord. Okay, so the Lord brings these things into our lives, and our job is not to just grit our teeth and get through it. It's to do it with joy and to do it heartily, to the best of our ability, to strive every day. Okay, so whether we chose this life and our circumstances, or whether we didn't, whether we were put in circumstances that are outside of our control, it is still of utmost importance that we learn to have joy and that we do our job, the work that the Lord has set before us, with the best attitude. And, we can't do that on our own. It is the Holy Spirit that gets us through that. But it is our job to not push up against that and say, oh, well, I have such a hard life and nobody understands, and I'm never going to be able to do this, and this is just too hard. We can think this is really hard, but then we have to pray and ask for help to get through it. So I just wanted to add that in case anybody was thinking, oh, well, good for you. You chose all of these things. Yes, of course, you have to have a good attitude. Ladies, we all need to have a good attitude. We all need to set the example for our children of doing hard things, doing them with the best attitude, and also striving to do them well and with excellence. Because if our children do not see us doing hard things and doing them with the right attitude, with the right spirit, they are not going to just magically learn to do hard schoolwork. They're not just going to magically learn how to push through Latin or trigonometry. They are following the example that they see before them, and that most of the time is us. So we have to set a good example. We cannot expect our children to be more spiritually and emotionally mature than we are ourselves. So of course, as always, I'm speaking to myself in this. I'm not just telling you that you need to do these things and then going off and yelling at the kids. Not at all. We're all working daily to become more conformed to Christ, as we should. So I just wanted to add that in really quickly as a quick clarification. Back to the regularly scheduled program. So once I finally got rid of that attitude and started really leaning into the idea that I am a teacher and that is a wonderful, wonderful gift, things changed. Number 9, I quit listening to homeschool moms who didn't have good fruit. Okay, ladies, so here's the thing. It's really easy to listen to any mom that has homeschool advice. But here's the thing, you have to be so picky about who you listen to. And I'm not just talking about moms on Instagram. I'm talking about the mom next door or the mom at church. Does she have good fruit? Okay, I'm not just talking about academic fruit either, which academic fruit is extremely important. I'm also talking about, does she have adult children who are walking with the Lord? Does she have adult children who are in careers or who are, successfully married or in motherhood? These are the important questions that you have to ask, not just about homeschooling advice, but about any advice that you seek out. You wouldn't go and ask a mom whose house is a complete mess how to take care of a house. And you shouldn't be listening to her if she tells you, oh, you don't need to worry about keeping your house picked up. That's not what's important. This is really important here to listen to the people who are currently where you want to be, okay? The only time you should listen to what moms who have bad fruit have to say is if it's as a cautionary tale. This is so, so important to vet the people that you are taking advice from or that you are listening to the advice. So if you have a mom at church who is, a little bit older and her children did really well in school, her children are walking with the Lord, her children are respectful, responsible adults, that's the mom that you want to ask to sit down with you and share her secrets, because I guarantee you she will tell you. So here's the thing, ladies, quitting these 9 things did not make me any less of a homeschooler. But quitting these 9 things did make me a homeschool leader. And if you're ready to stop doing what doesn't work and start having a homeschool that is actually thriving, then go ahead and watch my masterclass, the framework that I wish that I had 18 years ago. I made it just for moms like you. The link is in the description box below. I would love to know in the comments what's one thing that you're planning on quitting today. And if this video hit home, send it to a friend. Let's raise the homeschool standard together.